Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Riches. In the headlines tonight, Humberside Police rated the best force in the country for child arrests, witnesses are sought after an altercation in Grimsby, go sober for October, and the launch of a recipe booklet devoted entirely to fish. And I'll be talking to Julie Snowden of Seafish about those recipes and this year's Seafood Week. But first, some news. Arrests of children by Humberside Police have fallen by 77% in the last 5 years, the largest reduction by any force in England and Wales. Figures published today by the Howard League for Penal Reform show that the force made 1,300 arrests of children aged 17 or under during 2015, compared with 5,751 arrests in 2010. Frances Crook, Chief Executive of the Howard League for Penal Reform, said she applauds Humberside Police for being the most successful police force in the country in reducing child arrests. North Lincolnshire Council is inviting residents to look at the £2 million First Lake design plans for the Lincolnshire Lakes development. This is the first of 5 lakes to be built as part of the development, and a planning application for the construction is to be submitted after the event. £2 million have been secured from Greater Lincolnshire Local Enterprise Partnership to build the first lake. The £1.2 billion project will build more than 6,000 homes by 2028, creating 6 villages in waterside settings. The consultation event will give residents a chance to view the plans and discuss them with the project team. It'll be held on the 18th of October in Asda Car Park on Scotter Road in Scunthorpe between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. A 63-year-old man has been arrested and a vehicle recovered in connection with a serious road crash in Ellerton Lane on Friday night. He'll be questioned by officers about the collision, which left a 16-year-old boy critically ill. The teenager remains in Hull Royal Infirmary with life-threatening injuries. Police are appealing for witnesses to an alleged altercation in Grimsby. The incident happened at 12:30 p.m. last Thursday, when the 40-year-old victim was walking along Freeman Street and noticed a man and a woman arguing. The victim intervened and was seriously assaulted as a result. Part of the victim's ear was torn off. Officers would now like to speak to anyone who may have witnessed the assault by calling Humberside Police on 101. Work is underway on a £1.6 million project which will see the creation of a new dedicated endoscopy unit at Scunthorpe Hospital. The new development on the Church Lane side of the hospital, close to the main entrance, will also see the current lower gastrointestinal unit redeveloped. The new endoscopy unit will provide dedicated outpatient and day case facilities to be completed later this year. As part of the development, the unit will also see an increase in treatment rooms from 2 to 3. This will enable the Trust to expand its services for patients participating in the National Bowel Screening Programme. Martin Gow, consultant surgeon, said the development provides the potential to offer new services in the future. On tonight's Hot Topic, I'll be speaking to the new Humberside Police and Crime Commissioner, Keith Hunter.
Just the visible presence of police officers creates an atmosphere which has a knock-on effect much higher up the scale of criminality. And I am a big believer that if you withdraw those from communities, communities really feel the effect of that, if not immediately, eventually.
And you can see that episode in full on Estuary TV tonight at 8 p.m. Key delegates from across the seafood world came together last week to sample tasty treats from a new recipe booklet. Launched on the eve of Seafish Week, one of the most important dates in the seafood calendar, the book is designed to show how great fish is and how easily it can be incorporated into everyone's diet with minimal effort. Luke Adams went along. Oh dear, I don't think we have
fish.
There he is.
Glorious fish. I'm at the Grimsby Institute's Gallery restaurant this morning, where key delegates have come together to sample recipes in this booklet on the eve of Seafish Week. I hope I'm at the right place. Julie Snowden is an account manager at Seafish, who've produced a 36-page Fish is the Dish collection of seafood treats to try. She's collated the recipes and says she hopes it encourages more people to cook seafood.
We've brought together different organisations from across the region, whether they are in retail, whether a food service establishment or a processor, a fish and chip shop for example, with all their favourite recipes to launch the book. In this book we have created many different types of recipes with different species for people to try. They're all relatively easy to prepare and we want people to enjoy seafood and try and enjoy seafood more often.
There's some wonderful recipes. They're very simple, very easy to follow. If you need any help or advice, speak to your fishmonger. That's what he's there for. You know, if you need a certain cut of fish for the recipe, ask him. He will cut it for you.
Students from the Grimsby Institute were rustling up some of the meals for the assembled guests, which included dignitaries from the seafish industry and local chefs.
It's great to have the students involved. They've done various events for us in the past. This is the second event of this month and they're preparing about 8 recipes from the book and serving them to our guests.
The rising popularity of seafood is a no-brainer, according to the outgoing Chief Executive of Grimsby and Humber Fish Merchants Association, Steve Norton. He was at the recipe book launch and says fish more than matches the competition.
Such a wonderful array of different species and wonderful choices. You can do so many things with seafood. We're all aware of the health benefits in terms of being low fat. It's got all the right ingredients and proteins, etc. And when you look at the other proteins on offer, such as chicken, beef, pork and lamb, it is a limited range. But with seafood, the versatility and the simplicity, it makes it a no-brainer.
2 portions of fish can keep us all healthy, living longer, makes us feel fitter. So yeah, definitely at least twice a week. And of course high in omega-3 for your mackerel and sardines and salmon, anything like that. Let's keep everybody healthy.
And I'm joined now by Julie Snowden, who you saw in that film from Seafish, to tell me more about the recipe book and Seafish Week. Julie, watching that film just made me feel hungry. Did you get to eat lots of good, lovely fish?
We certainly did. What a fantastic occasion to promote the recipe book on the eve of Seafood Week.
Well, just tell me first of all about the book.
Yeah.
Who has contributed the recipes?
Lots of different businesses from around the Yorkshire and Humber, whether they're a seafood processor, a fish and chip restaurant, Michelin star chefs, the Grimsby Institute itself, and lots of other different organisations came together to put forward their favourite recipes to contribute to the book. And
what is it that makes a favourite recipe? Obviously it's got to taste good, and on the whole with food it's got to look good as well, but with fish there's a certain amount of, it requires a certain amount of delicacy and care and simplicity of cooking. Absolutely. I mean, the book is also hopefully to educate people, so there's lots of different species that we can try, but people might not necessarily know where to purchase them from or how to cook them, how to prepare them, and we wanted to show that all species are pretty much very versatile and easy to prepare, cook to prepare, and have extremely good health benefits. So we put together recipes that would relatively simple and tasty that people would hopefully enjoy at home. Well, we have, we think of, well, I'm originally, no longer am I a southerner, but I used to be a southerner, and we think of cod. Up here we think of haddock. Maybe we think of plaice and sole as well, the flatfish. Our imaginations maybe are a bit limited and conservative. What species should we be eating that we don't know about? Absolutely. Well, you should broaden your horizons and try all sorts of different species. So don't just stick to one or two, but try lots of different ones. So you have salmon, you have tuna, you plaice, shellfish. There's so much you can do with shellfish. Fantastic. Yes, yeah. So many different species to choose from. I mean, if you're not sure, the ideal person to ask is your fishmonger when you go in to purchase your fish, and ask him, about the different species and how you can prepare them, or even ask him to prepare them himself for you. And one of the great things is that because there's such a variety, there's only a limited number of things you can do with a chicken or some beef. But there are, 20 or 30 locally sourced species of fish that you can get that all taste completely different and have different culinary destinies. That's right, yes. You can choose, so many different varieties to put together so many different recipes and have a really tasteful meal for the whole family at the end of the day. What's your favourite? Oh, I like all of them, I'm afraid, but the shellfish recipes in particular. Well, we were saying Steve Norton, who was also in that film, was here last week, and he was saying that he prefers crab to lobster, which is very... lobster's sort of regarded as very expensive and luxurious, A crab is much cheaper, of course.
There's a lot of personal preference at the end of the day, yes.
Well, I want to talk slightly about that matter of price, because fish is also a very economical way to feed a family, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. It's perceived as expensive, but it's not. You know, you can be very economical with fish.
So what's happening with this? Obviously, you're here to promote the sea fish industry. Hope we're helping. What's going on this week that's part of the Sea Fish Week?
Well, one of Sea Fish's high-level objectives is to promote the consumption of seafood, and we have a marketing campaign called Fish is the Dish, and under that marketing campaign we have the annual Seafood Week, which this year is running from the 7th to the 14th of October. And during that week we are working with lots of different businesses. Last year we worked with approximately 850 different businesses to help educate people about the consumption of seafood and promote seafood, and really get seafood up there on people's menus at home.
So how can, if people want to find out more, what do they do?
They can go on our website, the Fish is the Dish website, and on there's a lot of business information for businesses who may want to incorporate promotions into their business, and there's also recipes that the seafood consumer can download, and lots of information about the seafood industry in itself.
Don't go away, Julie. We'll come back in the second half and talk a bit more about the fish in the sea and in the kitchen, but that'll have to wait for the second half. Join me then when Dan will be bringing us a roundup of all the latest sports news and the return of Reflections, and I'll be talking more with Julie Snowden. Welcome back. You're still watching Estuary News, and to come tonight, more from Julie Snowden on Seafood Week. Dan brings us all the latest sporting action and the return of Reflections. A Grimsby-based service urges people to seek help if they're finding it difficult to kick the booze. Go Sober for October encourages people to refrain from alcohol for the 31 days of October, or the 21 days left, and raise funds for Macmillan Cancer Support. Vans Braddock-Meads of Foundation's Drug and Alcohol Service explains the consequences of frequent drinking.
It's an awareness campaign for us. I mean, we would like to raise loads of money, but we realise that sometimes, that's not possible. But it's an awareness campaign for us, and not just about the guys that have got really heavy issues with drink, with alcohol, but for the people out there who perhaps come home after work every day and have got a dependency around relying on alcohol as a means of calming down, or relying it on a means of social interaction. They don't often realise that the amount of units that they're drinking, if they're coming home after work and having a bottle of wine every night, 5 days a week, that could be as dangerous as somebody who's drinking 4 or 5 pints of beer every day of the week and at weekends, and then shots on top. There's a real health implication with long-term drinking, and we just want to try and get a message out there to people that you can come and ask for some help. It's okay. The stigma behind how people view people with these issues is sort of gradually fading away, and we want to make sure we're accessible to those people as well. So if you do have an issue, you can go to your GP. You can talk to your GP about your issues that you may have around drinking at weekends or after work. He'll make a referral to us, and then rather than you come here, where you might feel a bit intimidated to come in, we'll come and see you. We'll come and see you at GP surgery and have that chat with you. It doesn't have to be a long process of engagement with us. It can be 5 or 6 sessions of just sitting down, talking, looking what your life is looking like at the moment, looking what your life would look like without the alcohol, and trying to find a middle ground of how we get to where you get to where you want to be. Hopefully, it will be awareness. It will be just getting people to be more aware of the risks and the dangers, and how quickly these things can creep up on people. There's a mistaken belief that because something is legal, it's safe. So you don't have to worry so much about the steps and measures that are put in place to keep you safe. We all know about that. If we take drugs, the illegal drugs, there's a slippery slope to crime, or a slippery slope to ill health or something. But people don't look behind the outside of alcohol, where there isn't a slippery slope to that as well. Because we're told it's legal, therefore it must be safe. It's not always the case. you could have a life event that happens, sadly someone passes away, and that bottle of wine that you're having after work to calm down then becomes a crutch and becomes 2 or 3 because you're trying to deal with emotional stuff as well. And we just want to make people aware that there is support out there for people that may have any issues with alcohol at all. It may not be them, it might be their loved ones, families, friends. Just come and have a chat and we'll see if we can help you.
And still with me in the studio, Julie Snowden from Seafish. Julie, what's the perfect wine to drink with a piece of nice fish?
Oh, shall we have a nice chilled glass of Chilean Pinot Grigio?
That sounds like an excellent plan to go with a nice sort of white, delicate flavoured fish.
Absolutely.
That would go with it, wasn't it? Now, you're trying to encourage people to sell more fish. You're representing people who to eat more fish. You represent people who sell fish, so there's a sort of fairly obvious reason why you're doing that. But why should we be eating more fish?
Yes, we're trying to encourage people to eat more fish more often. Fish is a great source of protein. It's got many, many health benefits, packed full of omega-3. Great for, for everything that we need to do to maintain our standard of living.
And it's very unfatty on the whole.
Absolutely, very healthy for you, yes.
There's an old wives' tale, or at least various old wives have told me, that it's very good for the brain. Is that true?
That's true as well. Yes, it is. Yes.
So fish should be taken as brain food. Does it have to be the beautiful animals that we see on the fishmonger slab? I mean, if we're going to go for a bit of tinned salmon or tuna or something like that, or if we go for it even in fish fingers, is that much less healthy than eating it fresh?
No, it's not, absolutely. I mean, if that's your preference, that's absolutely fine. As long as you're trying to eat seafood, at least twice a week, that would be absolutely fantastic in helping maintain a healthy, balanced diet.
But no reason not to eat it more often than that, I suppose?
Absolutely. No, if you can eat it more often, that's really good.
When foreigners come to this country, they always complain about our food. Probably the one thing they say is just about palatable is fish and chips, which is absolutely fantastic, a national institution, absolutely delicious, but it's a very boring attitude to fish that we haven't found. In any other country they do much more interesting things with fish. I think the best place to have fish is Japan, where they don't do anything to it at all. It's practically still alive when they put it on the plate. Why are we so dull about it?
Well, fish and chips is the UK's nation's favourite, and if that's the way people are going to, start eating seafood, that's great. It is a good start. But if we can try and encourage them, and this is what we're trying to do through Seafood Week, try and encourage them to be a little bit more adventurous and try some different species, cook it at home a little bit more. Some people just eat seafood when they eat out and never cook it at home. They don't like the smell in the house, and they're afraid of how to prepare it. They think there's lots of bones to try and take out, so the children don't eat them. But it's trying to educate them that it can be another source of protein that's very easy, versatile to prepare, and you can add it to any family meal. It's
a bit of a myth, isn't it, about the bones, that you have to be sort of an anatomist to cook a fish properly, because you can get cuts of fish which are very simple, aren't they?
Absolutely, and you can ask your fishmonger, to debone a fillet of fish. You don't have to do it yourself, and it is relatively easy to do it, yes.
Now, your Seafish, just tell us a little bit more about the organisation, because it has a certain amount of authority, doesn't it?
It is. The Seafish Industry Authority is a non-departmental government body. It was set up by the Fisheries Act in 1981 to improve the efficiency and raise the standards of the seafood industry. And the reason we're talking about Seafood Week is because one of our high-level objectives is to promote the consumption of seafood. This is a massive project area for us and extremely important.
Now that promotion, the objective of promotion, the consumption, it's obviously for health purposes, for the general good of the population, all that sort of thing, but for economic purposes as well. I guess there's a lot of people involved all the way down the line, from pulling the things out of the sea to getting them to the plate.
It is. It's a huge industry. Annually, seafood sales equate to £6.2 billion a year.
£6.2 billion.
It is, yes. Yeah.
Back in the good old days, before modernity happened and we still had the Middle Ages, everybody had to eat fish on Fridays. Good idea? Bring back that rule?
Still, people have that perception. Another thing of Seafood Week is to try and encourage people to eat seafood on the other days. So, for example, if you go on the Fish of the Dish website, you'll see that we've actually done a menu plan for people for each day of the week and encourage them to buy different species on those days and try them.
What's that website again, very quickly?
Fish is the Dish.
Fish is the Dish. Julie, I will look there this evening. Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
Now it's the return of Reflections, and this week that's delivered by the Reverend Ben Norton of Hull.
So here we are. It is a beautiful morning here in Kingswood in Hull. We had our first frost of the autumn, so the seasons are well underway of changing. So we come to this time of year of harvest. I wonder what that means to you. I think more and more nowadays we become out of sync with the seasons. Harvest time used to be traditionally a time where we would give thanks, where we would literally gather in the harvest for next year. But we have big supermarkets nowadays. We have food all year round. We have food from right round the world. So I wonder what harvest means to you. For me, it's about taking time out to be thankful. For me, obviously, it's about saying thanks to God for the wonders that He gives us in nature and creation. But maybe for you, you don't have that sort of faith. But as we come to this time of year, again, as the rhythm of the year changes, I encourage you to pause, to be thankful, to think about those that have worked hard to bring us the food and all the gifts that we have. Take time this harvest to stop and reflect, to give thanks to God if that's your thing, or to reflect and give thanks to those that have worked for you.
Now from the pulpit to the pitch, here's Dan with the latest sports news.
Scunthorpe United's online midfielder Richie Smallwood says he was disappointed that his side could only pick up a point at the weekend, despite them holding on to top spot. Josh Morris scored yet another goal this season, this time a free kick to give the Irons the lead. But they were paid back by a 10-man Northampton Town when Jack McCourt smashed home with 15 minutes remaining. Following the game, Smallwood said that his side stopped playing their style of game, which has taken them to the head of League One. Meanwhile, Grimsby Town boss Paul Hurst was also left frustrated after the Mariners didn't perform at their best on Saturday. They finished 0-0 at Exeter City, with Hurst admitting that a point was a success in the circumstances. North Ferriby United lost 3-0 at home to Forest Green Rovers, meaning they've now failed to score in 9 of their last 10 games. Manager Steve Howsham said after the game that his side could think themselves unfortunate as the score flattered the visitors and league leaders. They're now down to 22nd in the National League. On to rugby. Hull FC's Scott Taylor has been named in the England squad for the upcoming Four Nations competition. He's the only black and white's call-up to Wayne Bennett's squad, with Man of Steel Danny Houghton missing out. Mark Sneed and Jamie Shaw were also tipped for the national team, but they've both missed out on selection as well. And Hull Kingston Rovers forward Maurice Blair has signed a new contract with the club today, despite them being relegated. He's committed for both the next 2 seasons in an effort to get the Robins back into Super League. Meanwhile, new boss Tim Sheens will take over as new Robins head coach officially from next week. And that's all for the sport.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Hello there and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Rather cloudy tonight, although there will be some clearer spells at times, scattered showers continuing, more especially later, a cool northeasterly breeze continuing, especially near the coast, minimum temperatures of 7 degrees. Staying rather cloudy with occasional showers tomorrow, although there should be also a few brighter intervals as well, feeling cool in moderate northeasterly breezes, maximum temperatures of 13 degrees.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Riches. In the headlines tonight, a man is in hospital after being robbed in Hull, raising awareness of mental health in Grimsby, championing people with a disability in Hull, and the end of an era for subsidised sheltered housing. And I'll be talking to Anne Ludage of the Saucy Fish Company. But first, some news. A man remains in hospital with serious injuries after being robbed by two men in Hull. The 43-year-old victim was attacked on Wasteland between Argyle Street and the KC Stadium after being followed from a cash machine. This happened between 3 a.m. and 7 o'clock yesterday morning. The thieves escaped with £60 and a variety of prescription drug belonging to the victim. Anyone with information is asked to call Humberside Police on 101. A 16-year-old boy who was involved in a serious road collision has been named as Keenan Roberts. The incident happened late on Friday night in Ellerton, East Yorkshire. A 63-year-old man was arrested in connection with the incident. The teenager remains in Hull Royal Infirmary with life-threatening injuries. Police are appealing for information after a woman was robbed in Grimsby. This incident happened at around 3:15 p.m. on Thursday in an alleyway near Hume Street as the woman was walking home. She was approached by two men in the alley who asked her to use her lighter. She sustained a small cut to her hand as the men left the scene. Nothing was stolen during the incident. A breakfast event held last week aimed to combat the issue of prejudice against disabled people in the workplace and to show that they make a valuable contribution to business. Disabled people make up almost 20% of the working age population. Many are highly qualified. Luke Adams went along to find out more.
I'm here at the Hull Shrux Theatre this morning where a number of local businesses have come together for the launch of the Disability Initiative. It will showcase how people with a disability can make a major contribution to business and challenge negative stereotypes of disability.
We know that in Hull that the employment rate gap between people without disabilities and people with disabilities is about 30%. So if we can sort of halve that and get more people into employment, that's more and more people that are, you know, in our communities that are back in the workplace. And it's so important whether it's paid employment or work experience opportunities, but you know, people just want to be part of what's happening in their area, feel that they've got a contribution to make and feel valued as an employee as well.
We organised a disability event to give employers access to all the services that are available in terms of support for them when they're employing a person with a disability. What we found through working through KT and the PAD group is that there's not a great deal of support out there for employers, or there is, but they don't know about it. So the disability campaign is to streamline all of that support and put it in one place, so it makes it really accessible for employers when they want advice on taking on a person with a disability, wanting to know what support they can access, or just really look at some good practice and get some good case studies so they can maybe follow in that business's footsteps.
What are your experiences of looking for work in the workplace?
I'm constantly applying. It's the times what I struggle with, because we're all getting time to do applications and we're all getting the backflash and it's not working, and then people doing group interviews and they're not telling us, then we can't say what our disability is because we're scared in case someone else obviously disown us. And
there's a lot of stigma.
Yeah.
A lot of stigma. Okay. And what's the next phase now for yourself? Are you just going to carry on looking for jobs?
Carry on looking for work and going to interviews and hoping to get a job.
More than £1 million have been granted to 5 local businesses to create and protect jobs since the launch of the British Steel Support Fund in March. It aims to support businesses in North Lincolnshire to preserve old jobs and support the creation of new ones. To date, the funding has supported the creation and protection of 173 jobs, with a further 140 jobs in due diligence and an additional 28 jobs in the project pipeline. That makes a total of 341 jobs, comfortably exceeding the original target of 250. Councillor and Baroness Liz Redfern, chair of the British Steel Support Fund, said she's delighted that the fund is helping to support businesses in the British Steel supply chain and other local businesses. Shoreline Housing Association in North East Lincolnshire has announced that its subsidised sheltered housing service will cease in November. Shoreline asked residents at its 30 schemes whether they were willing to pay a small charge for the sheltered housing service currently underwritten by all tenants, the majority of whom did not benefit from the service. It's an additional enhanced landlord service provided by Shoreline from its total rental income and includes general housing management tasks, safety checks and the overseeing of communal rooms and storage. Only 29% of residents voted in favour of funding the service, with a £2.10 weekly charge for its continued provision. Chief Executive Tony Bramley said that as a result of financial pressures, Shoreline was forced to consider removing the sheltered housing service, but wanted to find out views from residents. They've decided against funding the service, meaning it will, unfortunately, he said, end. Hull North MP Diana Johnson presented a petition to Parliament last night about pension inequality. More than 10,000 Hull women who were born in the 1950s have been adversely affected by government changes to their pension. The petition was signed by 4,000 people from the Hull area and was organised by the Hull Women Against State Pension Inequality Group. The petitioners are calling on the government to make fair changes for all women born in the 1950s who've borne the burden of the increase to the state pension age. Ms Johnson said that around 10,000 women in the Hull area who were born in the 50s are losing out on their retirement pension that they've been relying on, having paid into it for decades. It's currently Seafish Week, which aims to highlight the great benefits of fish. And just to show how easy it is to cook fish, youngsters have been having a go at rustling up their own fishy delights too, as this little film demonstrates.
Today we're cooking fish for people in a restaurant. My job is cooking the salmon. My job is to greet people and show them to their tables, but I am a little bit nervous. Cooking fish is really easy. Put it in the oven and it bakes beautifully. I thought it'd be like really tricky, and then I was like, wow, this is actually quite easy. School of Fish!
And Anne Ladage from the Saucy Fish Company joins me now. Anne, why did you make that film?
We made the film really to try and get more people to eat more fish and to let them see that cooking fish is really child's play.
Well, clearly, it literally was child's play there. Is it that easy?
Well, it definitely is easy, and not only is it easy, it's quick. So if you're trying to encourage your children to cook and eat more fish, they often like things that don't take too long to do. And with the Saucy Fish products, when you buy the fish, the sauce is in the pack as well, so it gives real inspiration as well as convenience.
Should emphasise it's the Saucy Fish Company that's made this film and is encouraging this as part of Seafish Week. Other fish suppliers are available. But why is it that you think people should be eating more fish? Do we not eat enough as it is?
I don't think so. The government recommend that people eat a minimum of 2 portions a week, and generally people are eating less than 1 portion. And with it being so quick and easy, and people are generally short of time now and looking for quick evening meals, what's better than getting a bit of fish and it being ready in less than half an hour?
Now, if you can train your children to cook for you, that's a good thing anyway, I would say. If you can train them to do the washing up as well, that's an even better thing. But the trick is, I guess, it is simplicity, isn't it?
I think it is simplicity, but why not start a new tradition in your family? For example, I mean, people my age were probably brought up with having fish on a Friday, and I think younger people are not really aware of that anymore. So why not decide, right, each Friday the children in our family are going to choose which fish and actually get involved in cooking it as well.
Now, you've got a recipe book there. I think we were talking about that with Julie Snowden yesterday. But you've picked a favourite recipe, unsurprisingly and perfectly forgivably. It's from your own company. But what have you picked there?
Yeah, well, this one would be a great one to get children to start with. It's a salmon stir-fry with chilli, lime and ginger dressing. As I said, so you've got the salmon in the pack, you've got the sauce as well. So the salmon would take less than half an hour to cook in the oven, and while that's cooking, why not just stir fry some vegetables, boil some noodles, you've got the sauce, and everything's ready.
It sounds absolutely fantastic. You talk about salmon, that's a very traditional fish that we're all used to eating, but the great advantage of the fruits of the sea is that there's such variety, isn't there? And maybe we're a bit boring, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I know with our product range, we have the staples and the favourites that people come back to, and the salmon definitely is one of them. Another one, smoked haddock, which we have a sauce which is more traditional. It's vintage cheddar and vintage cheddar cheese and chive, and that's another staple. But then there are more adventurous ones like sea bass and other fish that if people want to try that they can't get in the supermarket, if they go to their fishmongers and ask maybe for a bit of tilapia.
Tilapia?
Tilapia.
Never heard of it.
Tilapia is a white fish, not dissimilar to cod, much cheaper, and it should be becoming more readily available.
Well, that's the point. You mentioned how cheap it is. People sometimes, perhaps wrongly, perceive fish as rather pricey.
It is a relatively expensive protein, and I think that is why sometimes there is a bit of a fear about buying it, because they don't really know how to cook it properly, and if they don't, then of course that's a significant amount of money wasted. But why not have something like smoked haddock and then put a poached egg on top or something like that?
Fantastic. That's sort of haddock Benedictine, as it were.
Well, exactly.
It sounds like the perfect breakfast. I will have to find some children to do the cooking for me today. And don't go away. We'll come back and talk a little bit more in the second half. Join me then after the break when Dan will be bringing us a roundup of all the latest sports news, and we'll have more from Anne and Grimsby's role in raising awareness of mental health issues. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, raising awareness of mental health. Dan will bring us a roundup of all the latest sports news, and I'll be talking a little further to Anne Ludage. Yesterday was World Mental Health Day, and Grimsby played its part in raising awareness for those affected by poor mental health. Staff from local mental health service Navigo spent the afternoon in the town centre, offering members of the public the chance to drop in and have an informal chat about spreading awareness of mental health issues in the community. This year's event also addressed the theme of physical well-being.
World Mental Health Day is an opportunity to raise awareness of important issues that can sometimes get ignored. Yesterday's annual event was recognised in Grimsby by local mental health service Navigo, who spent the day in Riverhead Square with a mobile drop-in centre. Navigo's mission is to help those in the community affected by mental health, and they took the opportunity to use yesterday as a chance to spread awareness for mental health and well-being.
And we've been talking to people, asking people what they do to de-stress, manage their day-to-day stresses, what they can do maybe to help other people, encouraging people to talk, especially men. You know, men in general usually find it very difficult to open up and talk, and there's a lot of stigma and discrimination around mental health, so we've been trying to challenge that again today, send some information out to the general public, get people involved, and we've had lots of people giving their input of what they do to manage their own mental health well-being and physical health well-being, because of course it's an holistic thing.
I think it's particularly important because exercise has such a fantastic effect on things such as anxiety, depression, stress, that kind of thing. It can help alleviate the symptoms, if not completely eradicate them. It can just be a great way to get out, get about, meet new people, forget about the worries. It's fantastic. So it's particularly important for us as personal trainers, as gyms, that kind of thing, to get out in the public and be seen.
In my job as an employment specialist, I've seen everybody from dinner ladies to professional golfers, all suffering and experiencing different levels of anxiety, stress and depression. They get the clinical input from Open Minds, and then they get my practical input, particularly when it's around job issues. In my job, support can work from anything from bullying, harassment at work, to just actually put in a few simple solutions through adjustments alongside HR departments. But over 16, 17 years that I've specified in this particular work, I've seen it increase generally with the escalation of pressures and economy drives and things like that. So Open Mind's very busy. We've got quite a lot of clinicians there who see people, and then there's me also. So I've seen the figures go right through the roof in terms of accessing services.
Well, fitness and exercise is a very good way of people suffering from mental health to have a release for a couple of hours when they go to the gym or they come to a martial arts class. It's great just for them to forget any problems they might have in their life. I had a student that started training with me over 4 years ago, a kind of a broken woman really. She came really frail, asking if she could do martial arts. And to cut a long story short, I said yes, and 4.5 years on, she's now working for me as well. She's one of my staff and one of my students, and she's doing very well. She's turned a corner, so it's helped her a lot.
I think just to get out and share an understanding and knowledge about positive mental health and well-being and the small things you can do, and give somebody a bit of time to talk. You know, if you can give somebody anything, give them a little bit of your time. It doesn't cost anything, and that little bit of time might go a long way to help and support somebody and to reduce the stigma and discrimination, and just get people out there talking about it, and so people feel less isolated.
And still with me in the studio, Anne Ludage of the Saucy Fish Co. Anne, have I branded you correctly there?
That's perfect.
What is the Saucy Fish's involvement with Sea Fish Week?
Well, we're involved in several ways. If you look in the supermarkets at the moment, you'll see their stickers on packs, which will hopefully encourage people to try more recipes. And they'll also see leaflets in store and a reminder to maybe go on the website for recipe inspiration. There's also lots of great fun activities to do with your children and tips to get them cooking fish.
Do you want to just give us that website for people looking for the recipes?
It is seafoodweek.co.uk.
Okay, and much more information there about the whole industry as well as just the recipes, I take it.
Yes,
okay. Fun activities. You're concentrating on children, getting children involved in eating fish, and that's obviously very important. New market for you, apart from anything else, but it's very important in terms of the health of the next generation, I suppose, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think research shows that if you get young people eating fish from an early age, they'll carry that tradition on through their life and become more adventurous and try different fish that they've maybe not had as they were growing up. So
it's a sort of habit-forming thing. If you think fish is something that's slightly strange as a young person, you're not likely to get involved with it when you grow up.
I think so, and that's why maybe start the Friday tradition in your household.
Okay, now talking of fish suppers, there's an event raising money for the RNLI.
Yes, we're very heavily involved in the RNLI this year. They're having a fish supper weekend, which is actually this upcoming weekend, 14th to 16th of October. You'll see the sticker on all the Saucy Fish Co products. And the idea is you invite your friends round, you cook fish for them, and they maybe give a donation to the RNLI that does some fantastic work up and down our coast.
Well, and including, not that the RNLI rescue anybody, of course, if they can, but including the fishing industry. The fishing industry must owe more to the RNLI than most, I guess.
Absolutely, I would think definitely. And unfortunately, there are always tragedies, though luckily they are very few and far between nowadays.
Now, we're talking about fish. You better declare it. What's your favourite? How do you like fish? Which is your favourite fish?
I think if I'm in a rush, salmon, because you can just put it in a stir fry or anyway, is just really quick. But probably my favourite is to make a really hearty fish pie with probably salmon in it again, prawns, smoked haddock. But my little tip, I mean, everybody puts their boiled eggs in it, but I would put parsley and capers as well.
Really? Okay. Do you know, that doesn't sound all that appetising to me. I hate to be negative about it. I just take the fish as simply as it is, but maybe a little bit of a sauce on top of it. And,
absolutely. And with the Saucy Fish Co, that's the perfect convenience with us, is that we sort of advise what sauce goes with which species of fish because it comes in the pack.
And very quickly, shellfish?
Shellfish is wonderful as long as you know exactly what you're doing with it. And if you're not confident with it, go to your local fishmonger and they will certainly advise you.
Brilliant. And thank you so much. Good luck with your endeavours in Sea Fish Week.
Thank you.
And let's eat lots of fish.
Absolutely.
Now, time now for the sport with Dan.
Scunthorpe United defender Scott Wiseman will return to Glanford Park this week after international exploits. The Gibraltar international earned his 10th cap for the nation in their 6-0 loss to Belgium, where Christian Benteke scored a hat-trick in Portugal. Grimsby Town midfielder Sean McAllister made his playing return this afternoon after struggling with a niggling groin strain. He's been part of the side that faced York City at Blundell Park in the Central Reserves League. Club captain Craig Disley, Tom Bollarinwa, Caden Jackson and Scott Vernon were also amongst the names to get a run-out. North Ferriby United are preparing to try and make history this weekend. They host Macclesfield Town in the final qualifying round of the FA Cup on Saturday, as they aim to reach the first round proper for the first time in their history. It comes against the backdrop of the Villagers struggling to adapt to life in the National League, with them sitting in the bottom 4 and having scored in only 1 of their last 10 games. Hull City's Scottish internationals are in Slovakia, readying themselves for World Cup qualifying action tonight. David Marshall, Andrew Robertson, Robert Snodgrass and Sean Maloney are all in the squad for the game in Bratislava. They're second in the group after the first 2 rounds of fixtures. On to rugby, in Hull KR, duo Kieran Moran and Adam Walker have been named in the Scotland squad for the upcoming 4 Nations competition. Meanwhile, Hull FC's centre Mahe Fanua says he's relished his first season in the city after winning the Challenge Cup at the first time of asking. He signed from Melbourne Storm last close season and picked up a Try of the Season award too. The 23-year-old was also one of 6 FC players to be named in the Super League Dream Team. And finally for now, some rugby union from the weekend. In National League 1, Hull Ionians lost 43-14 to Hartpury College, while in National 3 North, Hull RUFC went down 32-18 to Wirral. Scunthorpe lost 38-13 at the Leicester Lions, despite being up at half-time, while in Yorkshire 1, Hullensians went down to a 21-50 defeat to Bridlington in a Yorkshire derby. Mario Ellison scored the first of the Hullensians' tries before Chris Smith broke away to finish off this one, and then Dom Bloomfield scored the third. Hullensians tried desperately to secure a bonus point that another try would have given, but their endeavours were in vain. For the sport.
Thanks very much, Dan. That's all for tonight. My thanks to Anne Ladage of the Saucy Fish Co. If you've a news story, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 3155553 or write to us at Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Laceby Road, Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, DN 34 5BQ. Until tomorrow, from all of us here, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Hello there and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Rather cloudy tonight, although there will be some clearer spells at times, scattered showers continuing, more especially later, a cool northeasterly breeze continuing, especially near the coast, minimum temperatures of 7 degrees. Staying rather cloudy with occasional showers tomorrow, although there should be also a few brighter intervals as well, feeling cool in moderate northeasterly breezes, maximum temperatures of 13 degrees.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
You're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Richards. In the headlines tonight, a woman is arrested after children fall ill from contaminated food in Grimsby. The future of minor injuries units in East Yorkshire, pioneering elderly care while on the wards in Hull, and new pay and display machines for car parks in North East Lincolnshire. And as Seafood Week continues, my guest tonight is Mike Mitchell of Young's Seafood. But first, some news. Police are investigating after 3 children became ill from eating contaminated biscuits given to them in Grimsby on Saturday evening. The children, 2 girls aged 13 and 15 and a 13-year-old boy, were taken to Diana, Princess of Wales Hospital for treatment and were later discharged. A 60-year-old woman has been arrested and questioned in relation to the incident. She's been released on police bail until early November. Detective Chief Inspector Nikki Miller said that this is a good opportunity to remind children and young people not to talk to strangers and never to accept gifts from them. Police are appealing for witnesses following an assault in Scunthorpe last Tuesday evening. The incident happened at around 11:30 p.m. on Exeter Road when a 19-year-old man was approached from behind and later punched in the face, knocking him to the floor. The offender then walked off. The victim sustained a black eye. Anyone who witnessed the incident is asked to call Humberside Police on 101 as officers believe there were witnesses in the area. Beverley and Holderness MP Graham Stewart is heading protests against the planned closure of the minor injuries units, the MIUs in Withensea and Hornsea. The protest comes after confirmation that both units are earmarked to shut their doors in the urgent care consultation, which will be launched by the East Riding Clinical Commissioning Group on the 25th of October. Mr. Stewart has been running the Save Our MIU campaign throughout the spring and summer as he believes the two towns need local units. He said the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, needs to explain what in-town alternatives will be accessible to local residents. A £570,000 flood alleviation scheme has now finished in Barnetby. £428,000 were invested by North Lincolnshire Council, along with £142,000 from the Government and the Environment Agency to provide surface water and groundwater drainage improvement works on Woodland View and Chestnut Grove, which suffered during the 2007 and 2010 floods. Councillor Rob Waltham, Deputy Leader of North Lincolnshire Council, said the investment and funding have now made the drainage system a lot more effective. A revolutionary new concept of personal care for the elderly in hospital is now in operation at Hull Royal Infirmary. They may not be medically trained, but the new wave of recreational coordinators are a tonic in themselves as they're designed to improve the experience of older people in hospital. Luke Adams paid a visit to Ward 80.
I'm here at the Hull Royal Infirmary this morning where I'm about to meet recreational coordinators, thought to be the first of their kind in any acute hospital in the country. They provide a warm and friendly smile to older patients while staying in hospital. Laura Marks is one of the pioneering few who've taken up a post at Hull Royal Infirmary. She says she spends much of her time with patients who may not have other visitors and making them feel comfortable and fulfilled in their environment.
What I do is I provide a bit of reminiscence therapy for the patients. So even if it's just going around and chatting with them, a lot of patients are sometimes distressed and we have a lot of patients who do suffer with dementia on the wards. So it's up to me to go and provide a bit of therapy, whether it's nail painting, hand massage. I organise mini exercise sessions. There could be some patients that are actually, they look like they don't want to speak to anybody, but they actually do. But because they maybe don't have any relatives, I always sort of identify, especially in the afternoon when the visiting times are open, I look to see who hasn't got any visitors and I just go over and I'm like, are you all right? And it just sometimes turns out they actually look upset because they haven't got anyone to come and speak to them. So for me going over and just sitting with them, you can actually find out so much information about them and they just want to chat, that's all they want.
Wayne Morrow is the ward manager of Ward 80 where some of the recreational coordinators are working. He says they filled a gap in the hospital, especially in terms of keeping those with dementia entertained.
First and foremost, we're thinking about getting people medically fit and ready to go home, but there was definitely a hole there where it comes to just the entertaining the patients, keeping them occupied. Sometimes people with the dementia as well, it's been proven that it's distraction therapy can help them. And even people that have not got dementia that are sat there, it's always nice to see a smiley face, do a crossword or do paint the fingernails, wash their hair, just make them feel better about themselves.
I think that, and from the feedback off a lot of the staff, like at first they were sort of like, oh, what does she do, why is she here? And now they're sort of realising, they're like, oh, we could do with Laura, go get Laura. So I'm sort of like, I feel like now the job role's like settled in, so people really understand why I'm here and what I'm here to do.
The family of a 16-year-old boy who has sustained life-threatening injuries following a serious traffic accident last week have thanked the public for their assistance. Kiernan Roberts was cycling along Brantingham Road in Ellerton when he was involved in a collision with a car that failed to stop at the scene. A member of the public found Kiernan lying injured in the road and called the emergency services. He was taken to Hull Royal Infirmary and remains in a critical condition. A 63-year-old man was arrested and has been released on police bail pending further inquiries till a date next month. Drivers in North East Lincolnshire are now able to pay for their parking using a debit or credit card in 27 of 32 new parking machine locations. The machines will accept contactless payments as well as the more traditional payment method of coins. The new machines are currently being deployed with the project expected to be completed by the end of October.
We're at the launch of a new car parking machine in Grimsby. We're installing them in 27 of the 32 car parks. They're future-proof machines and will make car parking a lot easier. Well, the previous machines were obsolete. It's difficult to get the parts anymore, and these are more user-friendly, they're more future-proof, and it really brings it into the 21st century. No longer do you need the change in your pocket. Everybody struggled with change. They take car payments as well as coin, so they're more user-friendly to work for everybody.
As Seafood Week 2016 continues, I'm joined now by Mike Mitchell of Young Seafood to tell me about their involvement in the week's activities. Mike, thank you very much for coming in.
My pleasure.
I know for the last 10 years or so with Youngs, you've been involved in their sustainable programme. Which fish are sustainable? What should we be eating?
There are lots of fish that are sustainable. And actually, from a consumer perspective, we wouldn't expect the shopper to know all of those things because there are literally hundreds, maybe thousands of types of fish that are edible. And nobody can carry that amount of information around in their heads. So what we're saying to the shopper is when you buy a product from a business like Young's, if it has the Young's brand on it, the Young's logo, then that fish is sustainable. You don't have to worry about it because we've done the worrying for you.
Well, we sometimes worry, of course, we worry about the cod and they're thriving, I hear, and they're not necessarily the local cod, but out in the North Atlantic they're thriving. We worry about some of these fish that we know that have been overfished to an extent, not only that it's damaged the fish, but it's damaged the fishermen and the economy that goes with it as well. So what should we, there must be a fine line. There must be some fish which are just about surviving, are eating them at the moment, but you don't want to eat too many more of them.
That's the whole point of sustainable exploitation in fisheries. It's different from almost any other type of food production because certainly in the case of wild capture fisheries, we're relying on an annual spawning cycle. So every year, new baby fish are made. Those baby fish join the population.
And at about the same time of year every year for each species.
Different species have different seasonal spawning times, and sometimes the same species will have different spawning times in different areas of the sea. But it's an annual, for most sea fish, it's an annual event. So every year we make new babies, or nature makes new babies that increase the size of the population. And every year fishermen take fish from that population. Now, if the introduction of new babies equals the amount of fish we take, then the population remains the same, and we have sustainability.
And is there anything where there are just far too many of them, and the more we can eat of them, the greater the favour we're doing for Mother Nature and the ecology of the oceans?
I don't think I could sit here today and say that we need to do nature a favour by eating more fish, but we certainly shouldn't worry about eating more fish, because when we talk about sustainable exploitation, some of these fish stocks that we eat, for instance cod, mackerel, their populations are very, very robust, very, very large indeed at this moment in time. So yes, we can eat safely.
Mackerel have a fascinating life cycle, don't they? They have a remarkably fascinating career for an animal that is so incredibly stupid. It is very easy to kill mackerel. You just have to put your face in the water and say, come here.
Yeah, I think mackerel are a classic case of a prey animal that have safety in numbers. So they're a shoaling animal, and their whole consideration of their own safety is to swim closer to their colleagues in the shoal, which of course actually makes them really easy to catch by fishing vessels because they're all in one place.
Which is lucky for us because they're a particularly healthy fish.
They're very, very healthy. They're delicious for a start.
They are extremely delicious, yeah, one of my favourites.
Yeah, delicious. And they work really well with things like horseradish because they're very meaty flavour.
I think you should just cook them on the beach where you've brought them
Absolutely,
ashore.
as fresh as possible.
Put a stick through them and turn them on a spit.
Spit
absolutely beautiful.
On a barbecue, absolutely fantastic. But they're very...
Go on very quickly.
They're very high in omega-3.
Mike, thank you very much. We'll get more of that after the break. Join me then when Dan brings us a roundup of the latest sporting action, and I'll be talking a little more about omega-3 with Mike. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, Dan will bring us a roundup of all the latest sports news, and I'll be talking more to Mike Mitchell about fish. North Lincolnshire Museum in Scunthorpe is to have the biggest refurbishment of its permanent galleries since 1992 to install the new Steel Town Gallery. And it's calling on the help of the public to create the exhibitions, which will explore the history of the steel industry in the town from 1858 to the present day. It'll open next spring. Fred brings us this report.
North Lincolnshire Museum in Scunthorpe is a cultural hub for the community. However, it's about to undergo a vast transformation. The museum is having its permanent galleries refurbished in order to install the upcoming Steel Town Gallery. The new exhibition will explore Scunthorpe's history of being part of the steel industry from 1858 to the present day.
We're taking out the old geology and wildlife exhibition, and we're going to be building a new geology and steelworks exhibition. The steelworks exhibition is going to be called Steel Town. That exhibition is basically going to be the history of Scunthorpe steel, or steel in North Lincolnshire, going from 1868 when iron ore was discovered in the area up until present day with British Steel, which was taken over by Grable Capital. So it's going to be the biggest change in our permanent galleries for over 20 years. Really we want to keep the museum up to date and modern, and the steelworks is such an important part of North Lincolnshire and Scunthorpe's history. Before the steel industry was in North Lincolnshire, Scunthorpe was a tiny village surrounded by some other smaller villages such as Crosby and Frodingham. A combined population of around 1,000 people. Today it's around 70,000 people, maybe a little less, maybe a bit more. But without the steel industry, the entire landscape would be different. So it's important we have an exhibition which sort of, celebrates that history. We have had sort of celebrations in the past. I know in the late 80s, early 90s, there was the Steel Town project, which was a lot of oral histories which were taken from experienced steel workers, and sort of that all those stories were brought together, and they created plays out of those stories. So we have in the past sort of celebrated centenaries, but I think for the museum, this is the biggest celebration we've ever done for the steelworks.
The exhibition will open in the spring of 2017. And members of the public are invited to share their memories of Scunthorpe Steelworks, which will allow their memories to become part of the exhibition itself.
We are really interested in hearing from people who either have interesting stories, if they worked for a long time on the steelworks, or if they had family members who worked on the steelworks for a long time and they have stories that they want to tell us that we can include in the exhibition, or if they have any interesting objects that they can come into the museum and show us, and we might be able to incorporate that in a new display. Well, I think a lot of people don't realise how significant the steelworks is, not just in Scunthorpe, but across the entire world. To understand that, steel from, this town has been used in iconic structures across the world, such as Wembley Stadium here in England, and, Sydney Harbour Bridge in Australia. So it's really, you can see Scunthorpe steel all over the world, and it's such a significant part of the steel industry.
Although this new gallery will mark the end of an era for North Lincolnshire Museum, it's the start of something new to preserve Scunthorpe's contribution to the world of steel. Fred McNamara, Estuary News.
And still with me in the studio, Mike Mitchell of Young Seafood. Mike, I'm sorry, we were talking about the deliciousness of mackerel. You were about to tell me about omega-3.
Yeah, mackerel, of course, is an oily fish, and oily fish is full of omega-3, which is an essential fatty acid. That basically needs, our body needs it, but we can't make it. So we have to derive that from our diets. And fish are the best source of omega-3 for us to eat.
Again, I mentioned this the other day, but this is why it's brain food, isn't it?
I think people have been calling fish brain food for many, many years, and probably before science had even proved it to be the case. Because if you look at the brain chemistry, the human brain is around about 50% fat. And that fat is...
Speak for yourself.
A fat head. That fat is principally the same kind of long-chain omega-3 that you would find in a herring, for instance.
So what other fish? Mackerel, herring, where else can we find
salmon,
these
tuna. Those little silver fish that would swim around, sardines, pilchards, those kind of fish.
Okay, so the things that we find in tins on the whole.
Yeah, they're high in omega-3.
To get our hands on.
Absolutely.
Now, we talked about various varieties of fish, and we're very familiar with the ones that swim around our own waters in the UK, in the North Atlantic. But where do we get most of the fish that we eat in this country?
Well, we do eat quite a lot of fish from the North Atlantic region, but of course not all of that. That's a big area, and it's not all caught by British vessels. So we eat, as a nation, we love haddock and we love cod, and we still eat lots and lots of that from the same fishing grounds that we've always eaten from. So around Iceland, around Norway, the fishing grounds that Grimsby boats used to go to in the past. And we still eat a lot of that fish. But of course now that's imported. And we actually import around about 70% of the fish that we eat, or maybe even higher than that. It's quite a high percentage. But we export what we catch, because we have very mixed fisheries in the United Kingdom.
So what do we export, or what are we sending
away?
A
lot of crabs, nephrops or Dublin Bay prawns. So we would call it scampi. In the industry.
Refer that to nephrops, I think.
That's its scientific name, Nephrops norvegicus. But yeah, they're sold, the bigger ones are sold as on the continent as langoustine.
Yes,
very highly prized, very, very expensive.
But why is it that I have to go to Spain or the south of France to get this most fantastic shellfish? And I know perfectly well that it's been caught in British cold waters.
Indeed.
Rather than the Mediterranean.
Indeed. Well, in Spain and in Portugal and in Italy and the south of France, the Mediterranean countries, a very high level of fish consumption.
And isn't there the same domestic British demand for shellfish as there is in southern Europe?
It's growing. It's not as big. The most valuable catch in the UK fleet is mackerel, but that's driven by volume. But the second one is langoustine, or nephrops as I would call it. But a lot of the big ones are exported and sold as langoustine. But here in the UK, we would take the tails, wrap them in breadcrumbs, batter, and sell them as scampi.
We're barbaric, aren't we?
We are.
How big is the British fishing industry?
The fishing industry employs, the British fishing industry employs around about 11,000 fishermen. On shore, in the sector where I work and where Young's is a part of, there are about 14,000 people. So it's actually, there are more people working in the seafood industry on shore than there are at sea. The size of the whole sector in the UK marketplace is very large, actually. It's somewhere between £5.5 to £6 billion. That's a big part of our economy.
That's massive, isn't it?
Yes,
and I would imagine that in this area, in Yorkshire and Lincolnshire and on the Humber, that there's a big concentration of the fishing industry is right here on our doorstep.
The fish processing industry. Yeah, in the Humber Bank region, we employ around about 5,000 people, maybe a little bit more. So, you know, nearly a third of all the UK is here on the Humber Bank.
Is right here. Yeah. Mike, thank you so much for coming in. If I see nephrops on a menu, I will now know what I'm looking at. You make me feel hungry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time now for Dan with the sports.
We'll start with news that Hull City's Adama Diomande has scored his first international goal for Norway. He scored the second of his nation's 4 goals in their 4-1 win against San Marino in Oslo, helping them to 4th place in World Cup qualifying Group C. He replaced fellow City player Marcus Henriksen during the game. Elsewhere, Abel Hernandez was an unused substitute for Uruguay as they drew 2-2 with Colombia in Barranquilla. Goalkeeper David Marshall and winger Robert Snodgrass were both also in action. They each played 90 minutes in Scotland's 3-0 defeat in Bratislava to Slovakia. That's in the same group where England drew 0-0 with Slovenia. And finally at City for now, Lee Mason has been appointed as the referee for their game at Bournemouth at the weekend. North Ferriby United are appealing for fans to turn out in their droves on Saturday to try and cheer the side on to a place in the first round proper of the FA Cup for the first time. The Villagers missed out on the prestigious achievement last season in a penalty shootout and are a win against Macclesfield away from making it this time. The game kicks off at the Eon Visual Media Stadium on Saturday at 3 o'clock. Rugby now, and Hull FC hold their annual Player of the Year awards this evening. Danny Houghton and Mark Sneed are amongst the players hotly tipped for awards after they both picked up national recognition at the Man of Steel Awards last week. Australian back rower Mark Minicello picked up the Player of the Year title last year. And finally for now, Hull Kingston Rovers have confirmed 1 man in and 1 man out for next season following their relegation from Super League. Thomas Minns has signed up at the Robins for another year, while Adam Walker has confirmed that he will depart the Lightstream Stadium. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks, Dan, but I can scoop you with more sporting news. Yorkshire has won the right to host the 2019 UCI World Cycling Championships. This comes after their very successful hosting of the 2014 Tour de France Grand Départ. That's it for tonight. If you have a story, please email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 31 553. Until tomorrow, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Tonight it's going to rain, wind feeling quite cool. Tomorrow it's going to rain some more. Easterly winds will be strong near coasts and gusty, especially near showers. Minimums of 8, maximums of 12.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching SG News. I'm Hugh Richards. In the headlines tonight, more world-class cycling for Yorkshire, strike action is called off at Hull College, a new affordable housing scheme in Keelby, and council improvements to wildlife habitats in Scunthorpe. And I'll be talking to Phil Coyne about fish on the road. Hull will host the first UK Pride event next year. The festival, which usually takes place over one day, will be spread across an entire week. Festival trustee and vice chair Andy Train says he hopes it'll bring even more people into the city for Hull's premier LGBT+ celebration. Pride in Hull will run the event in conjunction with the Hull 2017 UK City of Culture team. A historic moment for Yorkshire. That's how the leader of East Riding Council has described the announcement that the county will host the 2019 UCI Road World Cycling Championships. Councillor Stephen Parnaby was speaking after yesterday's announcement that the county will follow the likes of Melbourne and this year's hosts Doha in welcoming the world's elite riders. It's expected that the event will go through parts of East Yorkshire, although the exact route is yet to be finalised. Officers from Humberside Police are investigating reports that a teenager indecently exposed himself and made an indecent proposition to a woman in Bridlington. The 33-year-old victim was walking along Martin Avenue in the town at around 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday when she was tapped on the shoulder by the boy. When challenged, the suspect, who she estimated to be between 13 and 15 years old, ran away. Planned strike action at Hull College that was scheduled to take place today has not been taken. University and college union members were set to walk out in a dispute over redundancies affecting up to 142 staff. The action has now been postponed until the 20th of October. UCU regional official Julie Kelly said the union remains optimistic that this dispute can be resolved without the need for action. 385 jobs have been lost at the college through the redundancies since 2011. CCTV has been released of a man the police would like to speak to in connection with a burglary in Beverley. It happened at a shop on Grove Hill Road on Saturday the 24th of September. During the incident, a large number of cigarettes were stolen. The man, or anyone who can identify him, is urged to call the police on 101. West Lindsey District Council has announced affordable homes are to be built in the district. A scheme of 18 homes for affordable rent and shared ownership is currently under construction on Ryby Road in Keelby. They're scheduled to be completed next spring. The affordable housing scheme is being developed by Gader Construction and Waterloo Housing Group, who will own and manage the properties on completion. The group received £475,000 in grant funding from the Housing and Communities Agency Affordable Housing Programme for 2015 to 18 to support the development of these homes. The housing scheme will provide accommodation for single people, couples, families and over 55s. It'll be the first affordable housing to be delivered in Keelby for 50 years. North Lincolnshire Council has recently started a winter season of works to improve wildlife habitats at Phoenix Parkway Local Nature Reserve in Scunthorpe. The woodland site is also known as Fox Hills Plantation. The main work involves felling about 1.6 hectares of woodland to create a more varied ecology. Fred took a walk in the woods.
A nature reserve in Scunthorpe is undergoing a woodland transformation in an effort to preserve it for its wildlife residents. The Phoenix Parkway Local Nature Reserve will receive new woodland structures that are more wildlife friendly than the already existing areas. Restricted areas will become more open in order to create glades and rides, with animals such as birds and butterflies benefiting from the changes. Unhampered trees will also be adorned with bat and bird boxes.
It's a site managed by North Lincolnshire Council as a nature reserve. It's an area of cover sands, so the geology here is a deep sand overlying the ironstone and other rocks beneath. Has been here like that since the end of the last ice age, and naturally it would be an area of heathland and acid grassland, but has become planted with these sycamore trees, which aren't really what we would like to see these days. There's an awful lot of them dominating the environment, so we're launching a programme of winter works this year to thin out the sycamore and allow us to replant with other species. Well, as you can see, we've made a start here already. We've had various training exercises, teams of volunteers and teams of our own workers taking down some of the trees. That's likely to continue for another few weeks now. We're hoping that the whole programme will be finished by Christmas to allow us to come and replant with birch, oak, species that you would normally find on the cover sands this same planting season before the spring. The sycamore, it has its benefits, but it's something that we don't want an awful lot of. It casts a very dense shade on the woodland floor, very heavy leaf fall, and it only supports a limited range of species. So by thinning those out and replanting with oak, the oak supports more species of insects than any other British tree. It takes some time to grow though, so we'll also be planting silver birch, which again supports an awful lot of wildlife, very good for nesting birds, and with its short lifespan it produces deadwood, which is also very useful for species such as willow tit and woodpeckers, which will use it in the future. Where we aren't planting with trees, we will be also leaving glades and rides that will allow more sunlight into the woodland. That will benefit the birds. You can hear the wren calling away in the background, and also allow more light to the floor for our flora, the flowers of the woodland to grow on, and that in itself that will bring butterflies into the area too. So where there are glades already, we have some power lines through here which are open underneath, and we have an awful lot of acid grassland species there. Things like storksbill, the bird's foot, which is quite unusual, wood sage and sand sedge. So we're hoping we'll get more of those in the more open areas where there's less bracken in the sunlight. The great benefits here is demonstrating how we can achieve multiple benefits from one project. So this work's been planned in many ways to benefit the wildlife, but also as a useful side effect, we have a need to bring some services through the woodland, underground services, sewers, cables, such like, which will allow a neighbouring area that's already an industrial state to be further developed and provide jobs for the area. So by having a well-managed open route, that brings a new woodland glade, but also somewhere where we can bring cables and services through without disrupting the habitat.
The work will carry on throughout the winter season, all in aid of improving wildlife habitats. From McNamara, Estuary News.
Now, Phil Coyne is a local man who travels the country with his mobile fish business. Since the business was set up, he's seen a huge increase in trade, and he's netted the sought-after Food Standards Agency 5 stars, the envy of his peers. And he joins me now. 5 stars, that just means that I take it the van in which you travel the country with your fish is
yes,
absolutely immaculate. There's no criticism that can be made of it whatsoever.
No, it meets all the hygiene criteria set out as you would in a shop. And it shows that we conform with cleanliness, hygiene, temperature control and due diligence.
I think we've probably got a picture of your van because it's rather impressive, and have a look at that. Well, who are the dogs for a start?
We have Millie and Bella. These are relatively new customers.
Are they? Do dogs like fish? I suppose they do. They like anything really, don't they?
Oh, these two do. These two definitely do. Every week when I turn up at the owner's house, I don't need to let the owner know that I've arrived. The dogs do it for them. Yeah, they know I'm there. They know I'm there.
One thing about the van, you must tell us the number plate.
Oh, it's a very unique number plate. GYF15H. So if you put the words together, we have Grimsby Fish.
Excellent number plate. This is your business. You fill a van full of fish and you go and sell it to regular customers who know what they're getting from you. And you go far and wide.
Yeah, I go as far south as southeast London, and I do a little bit further north. I go into Hertfordshire, and this is on a weekly service. And altogether, I probably see between 250 regular customers and 300 every single week. So it's quite intensive work.
And this business, which seems like such a wise, sensible business of selling Grimsby fish, just taking it to the customers' doors, you're not the only one. It's a busy business in Grimsby.
We reckon there's between 100 and 120 sort of like guys like myself. We call ourselves the van lads, and that's exactly what we are. We have a van, and it's kitted out like a shop, and we travel the country. It's about 120.
I think we can have another look at these vans because they are. You say it's like a shop. It is, and you can get how much fish in there? Enough for several hundred people, obviously.
The capacity is very good. Very good. The vehicle, obviously, the rear is the shop area, but during the side of the vehicle to the left is the storeroom, and to the right of the vehicle is everything from your cleaning facilities, materials, etc., etc., etc. So, you keep everything divided.
About 100 of you say, bringing the fish of Grimsby to the rest of the country. Very welcome that must be for them. But it's a big business, big part of this economy.
It's a very big economy for Grimsby. We reckon that between 10 and 15 million pounds is spent within the wholesalers of Grimsby just by the 100 plus vans. And when you look back at that down the line, the jobs that it creates, we don't want to lose what we've got. We've got something which is quite unique. We've got a fantastic brand, the Grimsby brand. It's no longer the big fishing port. that we used to be in the heyday of the 60s.
But it's still associated with fish.
But it's still associated with fish, and the name will always be associated with fish. So we use that name to our strengths, because the housewife knows of Grimsby Fish.
Phil, we'll talk more about it in the second half. Don't go away. Join me after the break. Dan brings us a roundup of the latest sports, and I'll be talking a little more to Phil. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, Dan brings us a roundup of all the latest sporting news, and I'll be talking a little more with Phil Coyne. Police are asking for a local heroine to come forward after she was seen trying to apprehend 2 people linked with a shop theft. An elderly woman, thought to be between 70 and 80, saw a pursuit between 2 officers and 2 suspects and jumped out to try to grab them. It happened at around 1:35 p.m. on Sunday the 9th of October, following reports that items had been stolen from a shop on Kingston Retail Park in Hull. She didn't apprehend them, but the officers did a short time later. 29-year-old Becky Jackson of Cranswick Grove, Hull, was charged with shop theft and bailed to appear at Hull Magistrates Court on Thursday the 3rd of November, while the man was arrested and unconditionally released. Everybody has a chance to hunt for treasure in North Lincolnshire next year, as 5 pieces of real gold are hidden around the county. The 2021 Visual Arts Centre has worked with internationally renowned artist Luke Jerram on a new project that'll see the public go on a treasure hunt for thousands of pounds worth of 18-carat gold. The 5 hidden treasures are golden copies of artefacts from the North Lincolnshire Museum. Clues to the whereabouts of the 5 gold artworks will be hidden in 5 paintings specially created for a new exhibition at the centre. The paintings will be on show from the 18th of February to the 29th of April 2017. Good luck. Still with me in the studio is Phil Coyne. We're talking about your fish business. You are a man in a van, and you're a man in a van full of fish, taking them from Grimsby and selling them down in the south. It's London's your main market.
London's the main market. I cover Hertfordshire and South East London, so that's once a week service to my lovely customers. And every week I'm there, regardless rain, snow, wind, shine. The fishman will always be there. And
what sort of fish do they like down in the soft south?
Oh, the soft south.
Yeah.
Oh, they can be.
Bunch of big girls' blouses.
Oh, I wouldn't say that out loud to them all. It all depends, really. Different areas, different tastes in food. It's a bit like, Grimsby and Cleethorpes proper fish and chips. The 2 biggest sellers I have really are salmon and sea bass. They usually fit across the board, but different clientele will have, so the cheaper cuts maybe go for hake, which is nice and easy to cook, or they may go for something a little bit exotic like tuna, swordfish, marlin, or even a cold water fish like a halibut.
And all that is fish that you've sourced through markets or wholesalers up here in Grimsby?
That's right. I have 5 or 6 main wholesalers that I use every week, and they have a very, very good stock. Most stock comes in over a weekend, ready for us guys to start work on a Monday, Tuesday mornings. We do get little notifications come through giving us the heads up that something may be in short supply. It could be bad weather up in Scotland, so nothing comes down over land. So we always get to know, what's going on. Sometimes you see us running around the dock trying to find just a handful of fillets, to go around 100 guys. So, fish is still one of those species that sometimes people forget that we hunt for.
Well, of course, it's the last sort of hunter-gatherer food source, isn't it, really? But
it is, yeah.
How many varieties of fish, how many species do you have in a van on an average week?
On an average week, I can have between 45 to 60 different lines of produce.
Picture of the shelves full of these things. 45 to 65 different things.
Yeah.
Very few people could name 45 different kinds of fish, could they?
No, and that's the great thing, because every week it changes, because as we know the species is hunted, if it's not caught, we can't sell it.
And many of them are seasonal anyway, of course, aren't they?
Of course, seasonality as well comes into it.
Now, you're not just, it's not like a milkman. You don't go and leave a live cod on somebody's front doorstep down in London. That's no less than they deserve, frankly. There's a degree of craftsmanship in fishmongering.
There is, yeah. There's a lot of skill involved, and most of the guys who do the same with me, we've all been in the industry for many years, and you know we've learnt our skills, our trades, either working for bigger seafood companies, smaller seafood companies, or just because father was a fisherman.
Well, how was it for you? How did you get into the trade?
I was quite fortunate. 1984, I was working for a packaging company, and I got an opportunity to go and work for a small Grimsby company called Fish Products. They wanted a counter sales van driver, and I'm at 18 years old. I wanted to drive, and that's where I got the buzz for the sell. I then worked for numerous other little companies in Grimsby, and I was given an opportunity to become a sales representative for a Dutch company called Van Smirrens, which sadly no longer exists. The building and the business has moved on. It's now called Premier Seafoods. But I was their first sales representative at the age of 19 years old.
Phil, you have salt in your blood, born and bred to this. Your business, it's a very ancient craft, fishmongering, and everybody loves fish, but the modern technology is very much a part of your business, not just the refrigeration of the van and all that sort of thing. The technology is how you sell the fish there, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If Mrs. Jones, if we're talking coin of the realm, if Mrs. Jones comes to the van and she's only got a £10 note, then that's all she's going to spend. Whereas the likes of myself and several others now have mobile card machines, which again we're opening up the opportunity to spend money with us.
This is the contactless thing, where it's
the
very easy, isn't it? Just
yeah. So, you know, if you've got £10, that's all you're going to spend. If you've got your card with you, usually the customer will buy, they'll impulse buy. They'll buy what they normally want.
And in terms of marketing, social media has been important for you.
Social media is amazing. I use Twitter an awful lot. You know, it could be 10, 15 hours a day to my wife's annoyance.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Seafood Week, as we've been saying all week on Estuary TV News, do you think people are eating more fish now? Is the fish consumption, people aware of how tasty and how healthy it is?
Yes, I think the health benefits now. People definitely eat a lot more fish. I've seen that in the last 3 years that I've run my business. That, you know, whereas a family were having fish once a week, they're probably now having fish twice a week.
Which is the minimum they should be having.
Which is the minimum they should be having. But some families, I mean, you know, there's some families that I go to, they can have fish 4 times a week.
Good for them.
Wonderful.
Phil, thanks very much for coming on. We'll have to stop there, I'm afraid.
Pleasure.
Because it's time here to go to Dan with all the sports news.
After 83 days in temporary charge, Mike Phelan has been appointed as the new permanent boss of Hull City within the last hour. Phelan held positive talks with Vice Chairman Ihab Alam over the last few days and now takes charge full-time ahead of Saturday's long trip south to Bournemouth. And we'll bring you more detail on the deal tomorrow. Meanwhile today, his predecessor Steve Bruce has taken his first day of training at his new club. He's been appointed as Aston Villa manager in the Championship, a role he was linked to while at the KCOM Stadium, and has taken current assistant manager Stephen Clements with him to Villa Park. Scunthorpe United duo Luke Williams and Jordan Clark will once again miss out on playing this weekend. The pair remain on the sideline due to injury, but Dutch playmaker Kevin van Veen is back in contention, having served a suspension.
Luke's a little bit further ahead than he was, obviously, because he's out of his medical boot now, so he's trained this week with the physios. He's not back with us yet, and Jordan's still doing gym work because obviously he's at an earlier stage of his injury, so neither of those two will be in contention for another couple of weeks yet.
Meanwhile, Tom Hopper says he's glad for a midweek without a game to help him refresh for Saturday. The Iron have played twice a week for the last month.
It's always nice when you're doing well for the games to come quick and fast, but you know, obviously it changed this week, so it gives us a chance to bit of recovery compared to the last couple of weeks. We've been quite busy, but no, it's a good chance to settle down and work on a few things that I might not have had the chance to do in previous weeks.
Paul Hurst has no fresh injury worries going into Grimsby Town's trip to Cambridge United at the weekend. Sean McAllister is unlikely to feature once again, despite coming through a reserve team game in midweek. On to rugby now, and Mark Sneed says he's delighted to have picked up the club's Player of the Year award. He's in with just his second season at the Black and Whites and pipped Man of Steel Danny Houghton and captain Gareth Ellis to the accolade. After a season which also saw him collect the Lance Todd Trophy for being man of the match in the Challenge Cup final, he says he's raring to go in 2017. And finally for now, ice hockey. The Hull Pirates are preparing themselves for a return to home ice on Sunday after a strong start to the season. They host the Guildford Flames with face-off at 5:30. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks, Dan. That's all for tonight. My thanks to Phil Coyne for talking about his fish business. If you have a news story, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 31 553 as indicated at the bottom of the screen. Please do get in touch with us. Until tomorrow, from all of us here, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby. Hello and welcome to Estuary Television's weather. Tonight we'll see overnight showers, however it is remaining cloudy with the minimum temperatures of 7 degrees. Tomorrow we'll see a cloudy morning followed by strong winds and isolated showers with maximum temperatures of 13 degrees. With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.